Hey mom, how's it going?
It is going fantastic, Lindsay. I got to tell you, really enjoyed that you got to spend the long weekend with us here in Hilton Head. I would have preferred a little less time being sick in my bed, but it was very nice to have you around. I'm now feeling back strong. So, it is what it is. Got to love these crazy long weekends that you end up sick. That's no fun,
Yeah,
right?
well, good. Glad to hear you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Just in time for us to have a great podcast guest on with us this week. Welcome, Mike Crowley, who is the president and owner of Crowley Insurance. Good to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you guys.
You
Yeah, it's
too.
always nice to see you, my friend. I love in the back you have very wide array of sports paraphernalia there. That's pretty legit.
Yeah, it keeps the conversation going. If the customer is angry about something, usually we can sidestep it into a new conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
there you go.
for people like me, it's just, it makes my eye look at a million different things, which I got to say there's one thing like someone's there holding a Superman. Is that an image of you? Is that a
So
little
that's a
yeah.
bobblehead that my kids got for me, and it says like superhero dad on his chest, and the bobblehead looks like me,
I
minus the
love it.
minus the cape.
That's pretty cute. That's cool. I like that a lot. Well, to start off today, we have a couple topics we want to talk about, but I first would love to share our first interaction, which when I was first coming into the industry, my mom basically sent me a list like, okay, if you're going to do this, you should do it right. And here's all the people you need to connect with on LinkedIn and like start talking to. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And so I go through and I'm connecting with people, and you were the only person who sent me a video back as the first message. And I thought that that was really special. And so I was like, screw it, I'll take a video, send it back to him. And that was just so fun, like a fun way to meet someone and start off the networking. And I know that this is something that you use in your agency, and it's pretty unique. Like not a lot of people do that nowadays.
And no, and I mean, I think it's starting to come a little bit more. I think people are opening up to the ideas of video, you know, louder, more public facing insurance professionals have been pushing it for years now. So I think after the initial like couple people, more and more are starting to utilize it. But I think the key was utilizing it in different formats. And like the LinkedIn message I sent to you. I mean, be able to do that in a platform that it's not expected. Like you weren't going on YouTube and watching a video of whatever it is. You were able to just look at a reply like I was saying, oh, hi Lindsay, nice to meet you, but instead it was a minute long video just connecting.
Right.
And I thought it was great that you responded. One being just newer into the insurance industry or even into business in general. That was, to me, was a huge touch point because most people don't respond back in a video. They
Oh,
respond
really?
back with a comment or something else, and they express the same thought process, but they don't just jump back on camera. And whether that was out of your comfort zone at the time, you jumped right out of your comfort zone and did that. I think just shows very highly of who you are, and obviously you're obviously in-house training with your mom for many years, and why you're going to be successful no matter what you're doing in this space.
Oh, thanks. That means a lot. Yeah, I took this stance a couple years ago, like during COVID. There's this like YouTube channel that I enjoyed watching called Yes Theory, and basically it's like a bunch of friends that get together and you like have to say yes, and you like they do like these crazy travel things, and I was like yearning for that during COVID. So I was watching it a bunch, but I've brought it over into my like career. I try to say yes to everything. And that was what kind of one of the things like, why wouldn't I send
Right.
this seemingly nice person who my mom wants me to meet a video back after he took the time out of his day to like send me a video, which is the same thing that our clients think when we send them videos. I actually, from that experience, every like a lot of times when I maybe don't have the time to actually pick up the phone, or I can't connect with someone one on one and I like need to give them instructions. I have Loom saved on my desktop, which is a video recorder, and I send people Loom videos all the time. And it is so helpful. It's such an effective way to communicate something super simply, quickly, and you're not having to deal with like the first 5 minutes, like, hey, how's the kids? How's it go?
Oh yeah.
Sometimes you don't have time for all of that.
No,
And it's
no.
a super effective way to get that communication done.
Yeah, we've been utilizing video many different ways over the I mean, it's been at least 5 years now, from just YouTube content or just social media content in general to in-house video proposals to customers to in-house training to now training virtual employees. It's been such a game changer in the sales realm for us that I can't imagine not using it. And and whether it's just me or my, if you look at, our YouTube channel, there's hundreds of videos, public facing videos. There's even more on the back end, and majority of them are me. And that's fine, right? Because I might be the face and the one that's fine with that. But in house, how many people are using video to send to a prospect or to a customer or a future customer? And that's what we've been able to implement as an agency, and what has really helped us grow. I'm going to say grow profitably, because we're picking the good high end customers that we want, not just writing anything that, comes in the door. And this is a way to connect with that and then keep them for a longer period of time, keeping that retention rate at a much higher level. Even if we got to move them internally or do something like that, because we build that rapport. Just like, we've never seen or met in person, Lindsay, but you met me in face to face through that video exchange, and that has allowed a connection, right? That you're able to do. Well, imagine the client and the agency connection the same way. In today's world, people are craving for it. Just like you said, people are craving
Yeah.
for something. Um, People want to be able to do insurance the way they want to do it, but they still need help. So being able to do that, connect them where they want to be. They don't need to come schedule an appointment and sit in your office and, go over this stuff and get their husband and wife or their business partner and everybody together. You can literally do it in a 5 to 10 minute video, explain everything, and just makes everybody's life easier.
So,
Totally.
Mike, I think that's a great point. But here's the deal. We've been in this industry for a long time. I mean, I don't really want to say how long I've been in the industry anymore. It used to be cute to say how long you've been. And now I'm like, oh God, am I going to admit that? But anyway, we go to a lot of different places where we talk about different things like the use of video or social media or marketing strategies or and pick the topic, right? We go to these conferences, we learn about these things. People like you stand on a stage and talk about it. And what's the trick though? Like, how did you get your team on board? I know you believe in video, but how do you take those ideas, get buy-in and get that actually deployed inside your agency in a strategic way? Tell me how that works for you.
This is a great segue, Carey, because we're recording this in the first week of September. And I think almost exactly a month from now, I will be talking this exact thing in Chicago at the Innovation Conference. And a lot of that, or the reasoning for this topic, is because of conversations that I've had with other agency owners, year after year after year at these conferences that, specific to video, would say, yeah, I'm still waiting to do video proposals. And I'm like, it's been 5 years. You're paying for the software that I use, that is the best way to do it, because you have the ability through our relationship with Advisory Evolve to have it built into our website. And
Cool.
you're paying a service to have that. That's not just free. It's an add-on, and you've been paying for it for 5 years. What's the holdup? Right. And you have these conversations with other owners that are attending these conferences and attending these things. So they're hearing the ideas. They're not even getting it secondhand from, um, to their staff, right? Like my staff would be getting, or whatever the case is. And they struggle with it. They constantly struggle. And so I was fortunate enough to speak at last year's innovation conference, and I talked about a topic, and I had numerous conversations after the fact with people that were in the audience who said, Mike, I really liked your presentation. I got a lot of value out of it. Now, where do I begin? Even though I did talk about where to begin on stage, but you're trying to grasp everything and you're not looking at the nitty gritty. And Maybe they wanted to actually have a one-on-one. So I scheduled at least a half a dozen of these throughout the year this year with other owners, and they would say, okay, this is what I have. I have 4 employees and I have 1 in commercial. I got 2 in personal and myself. And what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? And it was because people struggle. They go home from these conferences, they have notebooks full of ideas. And then they say, okay, now what? Or they take that like excitement that they come back with, saying, oh, I heard that Mike's doing this, and I heard Lindsay's doing this, and Carey's doing this, and I want to do them all because it all looks good. It sounds great. I would love my agency to be set up that way. I've said that for years. I used to attend these conferences when I would have to come back and I would talk to my dad or my uncle, and we would be like, okay, I got this idea and this idea. And they'd look at me and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, because it was just so different compared to that old school mentality of how to run an agency or how to, do things. I took that back then and said, okay, well, you're not going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And luckily we had the dynamic in the family that allowed us so that I would make those changes. I would try and get the buy-in from the team. I would do all these different things without getting really their approval, because at that point I was kind of running the day-to-day and they just didn't care. They just basically said, as long as I don't have to do it, you can do whatever you want. But every relationship is not the same. Everybody's got to go back to different partners or different people or different, setups within their agency and figure out how to do it. So it's, how to implement it is key, right? Making sure you understand what the goals are and to make sure that, you are getting that buy-in from whoever it is. But I think the biggest key is that you need to be the leading person. And I think that's where I succeeded in video proposals before my producers did, is they saw the success, right? Mm-hmm. They saw Google reviews coming through because we have it, automatically, zapped from Google My Business right into our Slack channel. So everybody sees the review as soon as it hits. And it was just like, oh, Mike sent me this great, proposal, and he sent video and this. And I mean, constantly over and over and over again. So I could talk the talk, but I walk the walk with that. They saw my sales numbers and my producing numbers skyrocketing, with the back end of a Google review, referrals, anything along those lines that were coming specifically for the video. I mean, I tell a story to them and I tell a story to other people. I had a referral come in before I even knew the person liked the video proposal.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was like when I send it to Lindsay. Lindsay goes to watch it, but before Lindsay even finishes watching it, you call Carey and said, "Hey, listen, my daughter just said you sent this. You need to look at my insurance too." And so when you see scenarios like that it's like, this is the reason we're doing it. And I used to tell people, I'm like, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for a close ratio increase? Because it helps, but is that the only reason you're doing it? Or are you trying to do it for another reason? Are you trying to build and improve retention? Are you trying to get referrals? Are you trying to, build a rapport with clients like the old days of when my grandfather would go and sit at a kitchen table, with the family to talk about their insurance? It's the same mindset, but using the tools and technology to do it. And so as soon as my staff figured that out, they realized, okay, I can do this. I don't need to be perfect on camera. I don't need to be able to do this. I can have that camera drop down into the lower little part of the screen. But the theory of why you're doing it is still there. And once they realized it, it was easy.
So I know you said that when you brought the idea in, that some of your staff or your family was like, this is crazy, I'm not doing it. Did you ever get them to actually do it? Or was there a situation where like relationships needed to be transferred from one person to another or something like that, where it just worked out that it happened?
So my cousin is one of my producers, and he has been probably for the last 10 years. He came in significantly after I did in the agency. And it took him at least a year of me doing video proposals before he jumped on. And once he did, and this goes back 4 years now when he jumped on, but once he jumped on, because he was looking at me being like, oh, this is the stuff Mike likes to do, right? He's the one that's on the YouTube channel. He's on the one that this, I'm the behind the scenes, kind of person. Once he realized that you don't have to worry about that, you can take what if I say too many times, or if I, am not looking at the camera, or if my hair's messy, or whatever excuse you want to tell yourself. Once he took that away and realized, wow, I would have never closed that without this. Or now I'm doing it for, larger commercial leads or things. And they're raving about it and then bringing me the rest of their business without even me asking. That's all he needed to see. And from there on, he goes, I can't imagine selling insurance without this.
I
And
love that you said, Mike, know what the goals are, which is really important, because here's the thing. We can go all hear amazing ideas. Like,
mhm,
you can go to a conference and every session you could come away with 3 amazing ideas from each of them. But if you don't know what your goal is to try and implement that, it's really difficult to take it to the finish line. And then getting buy-in is huge. But the fact that you walked the walk, that you embraced it and did it consistently, I could not agree more. And when I started my business, I actually sent a lot of Loom videos as well, because I felt like my differentiator is numbers are pretty black and white, but I actually care about the story behind the numbers. So I want you to trust me and actually be able to open up so I can get that story. And I'll
exactly.
tell you, you can't do that in an email. You just can't. Like, you literally can't. And when I first started, I would travel around and sit in an agency with the agency owner to get that story. Well, COVID hit and I had to figure something else out. Like, it's amazing what a connector video is, right?
Right. And, it's so easy to send the email or send some of these things because it, takes a little less time. But especially in our world, and especially today in 2023 in this hard market, every customer is looking for some kind of edge on something, right? And 99% of the time, I don't care what anybody says, it's going to be price driven. We're in a very, prices are going up 20+% for everybody. So if you send an email with very little context or very little explanation or anything like that, it becomes a price battle and you can't do anything about it. You're not sitting in front of them. You're not building that rapport. You're not, building that trust, like you
Right.
said. And so throwing the video at them to talk about the coverages, to explain the coverages, to pick apart what they have, right? And say, this is what you have, but are you comfortable with this? Like, do you understand what this means? I mean, 99% of people do not understand insurance. There's insurance people that don't understand insurance. Okay.
Amen to that. Amen.
Um, you know, I have, underwriters that are clients of mine. Okay. They don't understand their personal insurance. They're an underwriter, but maybe they're a commercial lines underwriter and they work for this specific insurance company and they just, guess what? They don't understand what their bodily injury liability limit should be and that they need water backup coverage or what's it, I understand what an umbrella is. So they have that context, but they're, do I need one in my personal? Right. They're sitting there looking at, maybe $1 million policy for a large, middle market account, but you still have your house that you have to deal with. And do we have the right coverage and understand replacement costs? And, so it's when you see that, when you see some of these people, the need for more independent agents and more trust and more communication is becoming more and more. As great as the direct to consumer market is, and for some, and how it makes it easy, I guess, for others, that's been slowly dying. You're seeing captives dying, right? Because there's not the trust factor. There's not that relationship, that, advice that is still there. And that's what customers and consumers need, business owners and individuals. And the more that we can show that in their face, the more we're going to be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this one last thing. So, as we introduced you, we said that you are the owner and president of Crowley Insurance, which is a family run business, right? You
Yes.
mentioned in this conversation your dad, your uncle, your cousin, and that, it's newly now that you're the president and the owner of Crowley Insurance. So, talk to me about being part of a family agency, being part of it as the future owner, being part of it as now the current owner. I would love to hear a little bit about that journey and some perspective that you can share, because 70% of agencies are family run businesses. And I think it's an important topic to touch on.
Yeah, it's not easy. I would say it wasn't easy. I've been doing this almost 20 years.
Hmm.
I joined the day after college graduation as a producer for my dad and my uncle. And they were the second generation. My grandfather started it. So The fact that we were able to bridge into that third generation is a success. A lot of them stop after 2, and a lot of them fail on the third.
They do.
And I think part of that reason is because the first one grinds it out and starts to build it. The second come in and grow it to a big amount, and then the third one comes in and just thinks they can ride their coattails. And I've read studies and heard studies that,
Sure.
that there's huge percentages of third generations that fail, and a lot of that has to do, in my opinion, with the second one just handed them a job, right? They didn't earn it. And I used to have conversations and jokes with my friends and stuff. They're like, "Oh, you're lucky," and I'm thinking, you know what they gave me? They gave me a desk, right? But they gave me the opportunity, and they allowed me to create my own vision and path right from the beginning. And even they did not think it was going to be as successful as it was. But a lot of that was my grit and my drive that I had internally. It meant something coming in and still having my name on the sign, even at 23. And even if I had no ownership then and, anything along those lines, I knew what my goals were and where I wanted to take the agency, what I wanted to do. I did it as I learned, but it wasn't a 9 to 5 and I check out and go home. I worked to figure out the ways until I really hit a stride and they saw the success. They reaped the benefits of some of the success, and they kind of moved out of the way. I mean, we had years of arguments, we had years of battles at the time, so I don't want to make it sound like it was the perfect scenario. But I was somebody that didn't go ask for something, and then when they said no, just sat back and said, "Okay, I figured it out."
Yeah. So
I paid for it. I mean, I didn't care what the reason was. I was going to go do it because I saw it was going to be of value to me as a producer, or me as the future of the agency. And that continued to fly down a path, and we never stopped for years.
we've talked about this topic a couple times on the show because I've had, second generation, third generation agency owners on here. And oftentimes the third generation, the second generation requires that son, daughter, whatever, next generation person work at a carrier first or work somewhere else first to have perspective to kind of break that cycle. That's not your situation. So you are super unique that, it's literally the way you were wired and probably the way you were raised that allowed you to do that. I guess what I'm getting to is, what advice would you give to someone that has that opportunity to not fall in that pitfall? Like what, because you have 20 years to look back and say, all right, I probably would have done this differently, or I would have done that differently. But what piece of advice would you share with them?
Communication is huge. Not as the up and coming generation, if you don't know where your place is in the agency, whether it's day 1, year 10, what's the perpetuation plan? We see a lot of agency owners, maybe prior to this heavy M&A time frame, right, where a lot of them would try and coast out, right? There was not a retirement date set. There was not a time frame. They would say, "Oh, I'm 70, I'm 80, I'm 85." I had somebody once come up to me. They're like, "How do I get my mom out of the business? She's 95." And I'm like, at that point, you might just need to wait it out. I don't know what to tell you. Like, and this person is now like 65, and he's trying to take command of the agency after all these years because mom wouldn't let him. And I, not having that unknown factor. What's the plan here? Is it gonna be 5 years? It'll be 10 years. I don't care. I just need to know. I think is huge for a lot of agencies, because I think that's why you see some of the younger ones that maybe worked in a family agency that are starting to say, "Listen, I'm not going to ride this out with you in the old school mindset when I want to do some of this new stuff, and you're not giving me any kind of help or idea of when it could be something that I can do something with." Whether it's changing some of the processes with the employees, whether it's adding technology, whether it's, there's still agencies, and I'm sure you see this, Carey, that don't have management systems, right? So, not only are they paper, but they have no management system. So they got an Excel spreadsheet. And, so for somebody to be coming into an agency like that is not, not having the ability to make changes or anything, if you're not communicating with your son, daughter, nephew, whoever, then you're going to lose them, because
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to stay in this industry the way the industry is right now without utilizing some of this stuff. If you're not implementing and innovating, you are going to die in this industry, or you're just going to keep taking less money every year because it's just going to keep
Exactly.
slowly changing. And that's not the way that that generation was used to. They were used to, if they were coasting, they're coasting relatively even every year because rate increases and good bonuses and bad bonuses, whatever, that's where their lives were. The world isn't waiting around anymore. They're not staying 50 years with the same insurance company because rates are changing, programs change, and there's just, that longevity isn't there. So if you don't have the tools and you don't have the ability to implement them, you're going to really struggle. And that next generation is going to really struggle. So you got to bring them in right from the beginning to talk about what is the plan? Where are we going to go with this and when?
Yeah. I got to tell you, I wrote an article on that very topic, which was silence isn't the answer. And so you have a lot of agency owners that are approaching retirement that are silent on what their plans are. And they've got this incredibly talented team that honestly, if they opened the conversation, they would find out, is someone on my team actually have an aspiration of continuing my legacy? And if so, how do we work that out? They stay silent and the years tick on, and all of a sudden people get nervous about, I might have to work for someone I don't want to work for, and I might leave, which again, that key person leaves. Now the value of your agency just went down because the relationships, like, it's an unfortunate thing. Communication is so incredibly important, and I could not agree with you more. And on the flip side, patience is also important. I mean, when you've built something, it's part of who you are, and you've got to give that person time and space to figure out their exit and their comfort level. It's a really tricky, it's a tricky thing, but I think it's great advice.
It is. And what you brought up regarding just a great team of people that maybe aren't the family, that aren't that next generation. And you're watching that, that one solo owner, but he or she's had a team with him for years. And maybe that team is really running the agency. They have the relationships, they're doing, but the figurehead is still there, whoever that might be. If you're not even communicating with them, and you're working, whether you're going to try and work and coast out and sell down the road, or maybe you'll sell internally, or you'll figure something out, if you're just going to wait it out, and then what if something happens, if you pass away unexpectedly, or you're getting to a certain age and now your team's sitting there with the family of the previous owner and saying, what do we do? Like, we can keep running the agency kind of, but I don't really want to run an agency. I just like doing this for, so it's a weird situation, and it's not fair to them, because most likely you're just going to sell to the highest bidder, that's whether it's a local person or someone else, because that's what the family is going to do, because they really are not going to care about the customers, or probably long term care about the employees when money is getting thrown around. So to
Right.
be able to just say, okay, here's the plan, here's my thoughts, this is what I want to do. I have no problem being here 3 days a week, but I'm going to start cutting back towards retirement. If you guys are okay doing this, I can pay more. I mean, just having these conversations. And then, if it was that younger family member generation that's coming in, maybe they're not ready to take it over. This isn't easy. Like, this business is not easy. Sometimes we make it out to be extremely easy. Okay. If you look around at a lot of people, there is a lot of successful insurance professionals.
Sure.
And
But it's not easy.
no, and they're loud, and there's a lot of loud ones, and whatever else. The problem is to jump into that lead seat, or to jump, and just because I now have full control of that versus just, day-to-day control, I now see every aspect. It's like, I don't know how I could add anything else more into my plate. Like, there's stressors that come from different angles that for somebody that's not ready to do that, whether you're 24, 25 years old, or 45 years old, and you've been working as a producer or account manager in your family agency, letting that older generation kind of just continue to slowly go away and allow you to take over certain duties is the way that's going to be successful long term. Just dropping the hat and saying, see ya, thanks for the money, and walking out the door is not the best solution. And if you have that conversation, most likely that younger generation is going to be patient, right? Because they feel included. They feel, empowered. Okay, I'm going to take this on. I'm going to now control the operations. I'm going to run, the technology. We're going to implement this. We're going to change a couple things. But in theory, mom or dad who actually owns the agency or majority of the agency is still in charge, right? Finding those happy mediums, finding where that is, allowing a little bit. It's like dangling the carrot in front of that younger generation. They're okay. They just want to feel valued. And they don't want to sit here for 30 years and be that 65-year-old that comes up to me and says, how do I get my 95-year-old mom out of this?
Right. Exactly.
And having those right from the start, whether it's day one or a couple years in, when you start to see the transition and the abilities of some people, because some people might not be agency material either. So that's where you don't want that family generational agency to falter. Like you said, it's like, oh, I'm just going to give it to you because your last name's the same. Right? Or that shouldn't happen, especially if there's other people in the agency, other employees or key team members that really are the driving force of the business.
That's right. No doubt about it. Well, Mike, dude, I could talk to you for hours. There's no two ways around that. We could probably talk about 17 more topics and they'd all be as amazing as these. But I want to make sure that we highlight how any agency that's listening to you, any agency owner, future owner, current owner, someone who wants to implement something, can really get a hold of you, because I know that you meet with people. You're an incredible networker in our industry. So tell people how they can reach out to you.
I think the best way in today's world is definitely LinkedIn. It worked well for Lindsay and I to connect, and honestly, it allows for the quick little one-offs, the quick little video that says something. Emails getting to the point where it's
Oh,
it's hard to manage everything just in general. In same with phone calls, right? And it's the life of an insurance professional right now, where you're pulled in 900 directions. But to be able to say, okay, nope, I'm going to schedule a time, and here's when I'm going to schedule it, allows for the flexibility for me to have a conversation with somebody or to do something. So it's so hard. And I have customers now that are surprised. Oh, you're on a call, and it's like, yeah, I'm not sitting here waiting for you to just randomly call me today. I'm sorry, but that's the way the world we live in, and people think that. So it's direct message me on LinkedIn would be the best. You can easily find me, if you're in the insurance space. And I will definitely get back to you. And obviously I'm willing to help anybody out. Honestly, it's one of the things I enjoy doing the most when I can fit it in, is to, and I want to call it mentor, but to offer advice or things that I've gone through to people that were either in similar situations, or to help move the needle for them and their agency. Because I've learned a lot from others. I've taken it, I've implemented it, which is probably the main reason why our agency has grown and is become as profitable and well run as it has been over the years, is because of the relationships I met. So I want to give that back as much as I can.
so anyone listening that wants to talk to Mike, reach out on LinkedIn, or you can see him at Innovation 23, which is October 5th through the 7th in Chicago. Is that right? All
Yes.
right. I
Yep.
love it. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on and being such an incredible guest, and for mentoring so many people. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks guys. I really appreciate the conversation. And it's always great to catch up with you too.